Glad to have you back with us. Nigeria's headline inflation dropped to 24.48% in January 2025, following the rebasing of the Consumer Price Index, according to the National Bureau of Statistics. This represents a decline from the 34.80% recorded in December 2024. Now, the Statistician General of the Federation, Adeyemi Adeniran, disclosed this at the unveiling of the rebased CPI report in Abuja on Tuesday, explaining that the rebasing was necessary to ensure a more accurate reflection of inflationary pressures in the country. Adeniran said the CPI rebasing involved shifting the base year from 2009 to 2024 to better capture changes in consumption patterns, pricing, and household expenditures. He noted that Nigeria had not rebased its CPI in over a decade, even though the exercise is typically conducted every 5 years to reflect economic realities. Now, food inflation for January 2025 stood at 26.08% year on year, showing a decline from 39.84% in December 2024. And further analysis by the NBS showed that urban inflation was 26.09%, while rural inflation stood at 22.15%, and core inflation, which excludes farm produce and energy, was 25.59% in January 2025. Now, Adeniran said the rebasing involved consultations with key stakeholders, including the CBN, International Monetary Fund, World Bank, United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, even Budget, and the Nigerian Economic Summit Group. And meanwhile, in all of this, the CBN Governor, Olayemi Cardoso, says the Apex Bank is determined to curb inflation and stabilize the nation's economy. And he said it in Abuja during the Monetary Policy Forum, and featuring fiscal authorities, legislative, private sector development partners, subject matter experts, and scholars. I want to read some of his thoughts. He said, managing disinflation amidst persistent shocks requires not only robust policies, but also coordination between fiscal and monetary authorities to anchor expectations and maintain investor confidence. He says the focus must remain on price stability, the planned transition to an inflation targeting framework, and strategies to restore purchasing power and ease economic hardship. He stated that the actions taken by the CBN have yielded measurable progress, relative stability in the FX market, narrowing exchange rate disparities, and a rise in external reserves to over $40 billion as of December 2024. But despite this methodology and the change, regional disparities in the cost of living still persist. Now, I hope we can get the breakdown, but if we can't, that's fine. Looking at some of the top most expensive states in Nigeria as of January 2025, number 10, you have Kano with an all-item inflation rate of 12.51%, I think. And the ninth state there is Borno State with an all-item rate of 12.52% in January of 2025. And the next state is Zamfara State. Zamfara all-items inflation rate from 39.63% in December 2024. And then up next is Rivers State, of course, remains one of the costliest states in Nigeria with all-item inflation rate of 13.84%. And then Enugu ranks 6th amongst Nigeria's most expensive states with an all-inflation rate of 14.69% as of January 2025. And then up next is Kaduna, and its inflation rate for all items stood at 14.82% in January 2025. And then up next is Abia State with a recorded inflation rate of 15.38% as of January 2025. And then following Abia State, up next is Katsina State, and ranks 3rd on the list with an all-items inflation rate of 15.99%. That's quite high. And we've been covering the stats for quite a while, and just the fluctuation of the cost of living in some of the states is pretty amazing, and it just changes frequently. And number two is Ebonyi, which remains Nigeria's most expensive state with an all inflation rate of 16.13% as compared to January 2025. And finally, before we get to our guest, Imo State is the most expensive state to live in Nigeria as of January 2025. And this is coming in from reporting from Naira Metrics. So those are the breakdown, and of course with the CPI rebasing. Quite a lot to unpack. Let's go to Dr. Ali. Thank you so much for being with us on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So let's go to this new rebasing. As reported, I mean, this is something that ought to happen every 5 years. Is it timely that this is happening now? Recall the president said in January that he's going to reduce inflation to 15%. So is this the magic wand being used by the president to achieve this?
I think rebasing is a normal thing that should happen to every economy. The only challenge is that we stay for a long time without rebasing. Ideally, rebasing is supposed to be every 5 years. You rebase your economy so that you can know the true status of the economy, because rebase actually exposes you to the actual reality. So moving ahead now, if you now ask me now, I would say rebasing generally in this direction has actually helped Nigeria to know the status. However, we have rebased last in 2009. That was the last time we rebased. And calculated about 14 years ago. So we now have to rebase now. CBN now think of rebasing. We're now rebasing it to now 2024. So looking at it for 2024, we now justify how much the standard of our living are. However, it also reflects, according to the NBS, they actually also make sure that they change the basket. The basket usually is about 750 items that we used to look into, but now we are looking at about 960 items when you are looking at when you are quantifying or evaluating the inflation rate and other commodities in Nigeria. So for rebasing, I think it's a good one. The question now is that, is it favorable? Does it make a difference in the market? These are the questions we must ask.
Now, when the president said he was going to reduce inflation, was this how you expected it to become a reality? I mean, from 34 to 24.
Right. I don't think it has fall inflation rates. There's been a difference between fall and drop. I think we are having an issue with nomenclature here. But to make it clearer for Nigerians, the rebasing does not really fall the inflation. It does not reduce the level of inflation in Nigeria. It does not change the cost of goods and services in Nigeria. It does not reduce rent. It does not reduce transport. It does not have any effect on the commodities that we buy. The only thing is that it's only change in number. So we have 34.8 before. Now it has dropped to 24. It does not fall it does not have any effect on the price of goods and services.
So do you suspect that this administration is going to relapse its proactiveness in reducing inflation? Because when it was 34, we were all screaming, food is high, house rent is expensive, the cost of transportation, everything is on the high side. Now it's down to 24%. That's definitely going to calm the nerves of people, because when you say 24%, looking at where you're coming from 34%, I mean, well, do you think that could, dampen the proactiveness of government in tackling inflation crisis?
Well, for the stand of inflation that we have now, I don't think you recall that president said he's targeting 15% inflation by December, and some of us economists said it's a how do I call it? It's over ambitious, not even ambitious. It's much more over ambitious to expect that. Even as it is now, I don't see us losing. Even with this rebase of 24, I don't see us losing that 9% until we go extra mile to do things. And you recall that we are in 2025 already, and this is February. By next 2 weeks or thereabout, we are going to commence March, which is the first quarter is about to end. So for me, I don't see it coming down beyond what it is now.
Now, let me take you to some of the thoughts shared by the CBN governor on Monday regarding the progress that has been made so far and some of the things that they want to do to ensure that inflation drops. Now, there's quite a lot on their side, scoring themselves pretty high. But you're the economist. Away from propaganda, what makes sense to you?
Right. I think the rebasing of the economy have positive externalities. I think I should put it in that way. Simply because as we rebase now, it's going to position Nigeria better in terms of economy, in terms of external view. So most external investors, especially for foreign direct investment, I think Nigeria is better now because they also, when you're coming to invest in a country, you look at it very well that how you look at the macro economy of that economy. And the first thing you look at is the inflation. So now we have 24% inflation. It's much more attractive compared to 4%. And investors will now have confidence. So I think this has boosted confidence of the investors to come in. And now also, by the time we rebase our GDP, our GDP has not been rebased. According to the NBS man, he said he's actually consulting further so that they can really rebase GDP without further challenges. So by the time GDP is rebased, we'll be much more buoyant. We'll return to the first in Africa economy. We'll also look good. In fact, per capita income of me and you will also increase. So these are the things that it will bring. So it will bring much more positive externalities. However, we have challenges of coordination, like rightly mentioned. You see, you recall during Emefiele, there was a time when Emefiele was changing the currency, the Minister of Finance came out and said, our fiscal policy, monetary policy, even our trade policy, they must all come together to actually work for us. And that's why some of us, when we are scoring this economic policy so far, we say that we can only give them parity 5/10, which is average. They need to do more to better Nigerian laws, because even this rebasing, I hope it will not be a point of how do I call it? A point of a lullaby for Nigeria.
Now, let's talk about what government can do to reduce inflation. I was looking at food inflation, a particular report from Kano State saying inflation is down. And I mean, a lot of things, especially the price of rice has gone down. And talking about Kano, it's not on this current list of top 10 most expensive states to live in Nigeria. Do you agree with that narrative?
When you say slight reduction from inflation, I can't recall that we have reduced inflation, because you recall that the Unitide, the festival gone, and maybe because January as it were, things tend to slow down. Perhaps that's why the result of February may slow down the April. But I assure you, it will still move to normalcy by March, because the challenge of Forex is still there. The challenge of coal production is still there, and other legacy problems are still there in Nigeria.
All right, Dr. Ali, our time is almost up. Thank you once more again for sharing your expertise on politics now.
Thank you for having me.
And that's our show, folks, tonight. Thank you so much for watching on this issue of inflation. I mean, it's really the reality on ground that things are pretty expensive, and rebasing, as good as it sounds for investors, doesn't really make any sense to the reality that's on ground. Things are pretty expensive. What's more important, it's not just painting the economy to look so good before investors, but what will be done to bring down the cost of living. And that's one of the things that President Tinubu said he is going to do. How will he do that, given the fuel crisis in the country? All of this and more we will be watching out this year as the president and his economic team continue to work in ensuring that Nigeria's standard of living goes up than where it is presently. That's all we can take on the show today. Many thanks for watching. Once again, my name is Morno Balagubo. Bye for now.